Chapter 4: Physical and Energetic Biology. I've heard it said, give an apple and a bunny to a baby and watch to see which one he eats. So, what is natural for us to eat? Why do we eat what we do and crave the foods that we crave? By looking at the anatomy and physiology of our physical bodies, we can see what we were designed to eat. Many doctors, medical specialists, and natural health practitioners acknowledge that humans are herbivores based on our bodies and how they function. So let's take a look at our anatomy and physiology to gain an understanding of why so many health experts believe that we are herbivores. Our mouths. Human jaws move up and down and from side to side, and the muscles of our mouth that allow us to do this are different to carnivores. These movements allow us to chew fruits, vegetables, and plant matter effectively. In comparison, the jaws of carnivorous animals move upwards and downwards. Our mouth doesn't open up very widely, and our jaws don't open at a wide angle. In comparison, carnivores have a larger mouth opening and their jaws do open up to a wide angle. Our canine teeth are not really canines as compared to other animals. These teeth don't protrude outside the mouth and they aren't sharp like in other carnivorous animals. Our black molars are flat. This indicates that we are herbivores as these teeth help us to grind down plant matter to eat. Our mouth also has a digestive enzyme called amylase. This helps us to digest carbohydrates, but carnivores don't have this enzyme present. It has also been pointed out that humans have different receptors on the tongue as compared to carnivores. Carnivores are observed to enjoy raw meat, while humans season meat with herbs, spices, salt, etc. Humans usually cook meat and can become very ill if they don't. Human nails. Human nails are comparatively short and soft compared to carnivorous animals that have strong, sharp claws. The human digestive system. The volume of our stomach and the pH level of our stomach acid is very different to carnivores. We have a smaller stomach, less than half the size of carnivores, and our stomach acid is considered to be only moderately acidic. This mirrors our behavior as we eat smaller, more frequent meals than carnivores. Carnivores may quickly eat large amounts of food in one sitting. Hence, they have a larger stomach capacity and can more quickly digest food in their stomach. Their stronger stomach acid is also necessary to kill the bacteria that they are ingesting, especially because flesh begins to putrefy when an animal has died. This difference in stomach pH levels is an important one. Humans are not designed to eat raw meat. Our stomach acid does not break down dangerous bacteria the way that carnivorous animals do. The World Health Organization has stated that bacterial contamination of meat is a real problem. Raw meat contains certain types of bacteria, including pathogenic bacteria which can cause severe illness. When an animal is slaughtered, the salmonella within his or her intestines often contaminates the meat. Meat is a reservoir for bacterial growth, and some of these bacteria are not easily destroyed. The pathogenic bacteria, Clostridium perfringens, is an example of a bacteria that is not easily destroyed at normal cooking temperatures. Researchers have also linked E. coli bacteria from chicken flesh to urinary tract infections. Chicken is very commonly contaminated with fecal bacteria, that is, bacteria from poo. Bacteria have been found on chopping boards and kitchen surfaces where people prepare chicken flesh, even after cleaning with hot water and detergent. Even after bleaching surfaces and equipment, researchers found that Campylobacter and Salmonella could still be found in the kitchens of those who prepared and ate chicken. So, how is this linked to urinary tract infections? In those people who prepare the chicken or touch surfaces that are contaminated with E. coli, the E. coli on their fingers infects them when they wipe themselves after toileting. The E. coli has been traced, quote, from the slaughterhouse to the meat, to the urine specimens obtained from infected women." End quote. And, of course, we humans can become contaminated with parasites that are found in raw meat and seafood, including sushi. Some parasite infections can lead to death, such as infection by the tapeworm from pigs, which can infect and damage our brain and nervous system. It can take years for this to become apparent, so in the meantime, people will quite often not know that they are infected. This is similar to mad cow disease, in that infection by cow prions can take decades to show its symptoms of infection. Intestines. Humans have quite long intestinal tracts. Our intestines are about 10 times our body length. As food transits through the intestines, it is broken down even more and nutrients are absorbed. Fiber helps to feed the beneficial bacteria in our digestive tracts, and this helps to keep our bowel movements regular. Meat contains no fiber and is linked to bowel cancer. Constipation in animals can lead to many health problems that can affect various systems of the body. However, carnivores have a markedly shorter intestinal tract than us herbivores, so that the meat is eliminated faster from their body to avoid it putrefying in the intestines. It's also interesting to note that we do not produce our own vitamin C. We need to obtain this important nutrient from our diet. We know from history that people have died of scurvy, but carnivorous animals do make their own vitamin C. Also, humans develop heart disease, but wild carnivorous animals virtually never develop this. Why is this relevant, you may wonder? Because heart disease is mainly due to diet. In humans, consuming animal products is the leading cause of heart disease. Our bodies are telling us that they can't cope with eating animal products day after day and year after year. To quote Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, quote, "Coronary disease has no building blocks from the plant-based diet. Meat, cheese, milk, butter, ice cream, eggs, fried food, oils, and margarine are the lethal atherosclerotic linchpins." End quote. Coronary artery disease is the #1 cause of death in adults in America, but leading cardiologists and doctors unequivocally say that it forms because of the animal products in our diet, along with oils. A low-fat, whole-food, plant-based diet is the only diet that has been scientifically shown to both prevent and reverse heart disease. It's also important to note that our human bodies make all the cholesterol that we need. We do not need to eat anything that has cholesterol in it. No plant foods contain cholesterol. This is only found in animal-derived ingredients. All of this indicates that we are herbivores by nature. For those who would like more in-depth information on the differences between human herbivores and carnivorous animals, I encourage you to look up writing done by Dr. Milton Mills. His work on the comparative anatomy of eating is much more in-depth and scientific than the general outline given here. The doctrine of signatures and our food. If we look to nature to guide us about the food that we eat and how each food may benefit us, the doctrine of signatures is interesting to consider. The doctrine of signatures elucidates which benefit is present in various foods, in particular fruits, vegetables, and herbs. Keen observation is made to decipher clues including how the foods look and grow. It is thought that Paracelsus, who lived from 1493 to 1541, is responsible for making this theory broadly known. This perspective offers us a unique way of understanding and appreciating food. Consider the walnut as an example of the doctrine of signatures. A walnut looks like the human brain encased in its skull. From a doctrine of signatures perspective, walnuts were thus regarded as being helpful for the head, and researchers have backed this up. For example, a study in the Journal of Nutrition wrote, quote, "English walnuts are rich in numerous phytochemicals, including high amounts of polyunsaturated fatty acids, and offer potential benefits to brain health." End quote. The paper also states that walnuts help to lower brain cell inflammation, improve signaling between brain cells, and help new brain cells to form. Another example to consider is carrots. When sliced, carrots look like an eye. It turns out that carrots contain the carotenoids called lutein, zeaxanthin, and beta-carotene. Studies have shown that people with the eye condition of age-related macular degeneration have low levels of lutein and zeaxanthin. And lutein, zeaxanthin, and beta-carotene are beneficial for their eyesight. It's no surprise that herbalists have also used the doctrine of signatures to gain more insight into herbs. For example, the herb meadow saffron, or colchicum autumnal, has roots that look like swollen toes, and this herb is used to treat gout, a painful condition where the big toe becomes inflamed. When we consider the doctrine of signatures, it's also interesting to consider the process of photosynthesis. Plants essentially use light to create their own energy. Chloroplast cells in leaves contain chlorophyll that absorbs the energy from the sun. Through the process of photosynthesis, water is broken down into oxygen and hydrogen. From a doctrine of signatures perspectives, this speaks volumes. The plants are using a high vibration energy as fuel. Sunlight is emitted from a high-level spiritual being, the sun, and through utilizing this high vibrational energy, the plants grow. By growing, their very existence helps us humans. How? Because they put oxygen into our atmosphere, which is essential for us to stay alive. Consider for a moment that without trees and plants, we wouldn't be able to survive on Earth. Even at this simplistic level, we can see that plants and trees, by virtue of what they are and what they do, are in loving service to us in many ways. Each day that they exist, they bring blessings. Dr. Gabrielle Cousens, founder and director of the Tree of Life Foundation and its Tree of Life Center in the USA, has given some key insights into light within food. His insights are multifaceted because, in addition to being a medical doctor, he also studied psychiatry, Ayurvedic medicine, holistic medicine, and has obtained a doctor in divinity. In a Tree of Life Foundation newsletter, Dr. Cousens stated, quote, "Our health and consciousness depends on our ability to attract, store, and conduct electron energy through eating foods with a high solar electron content. This is essential for the energizing and regulation of all life forces. The greater our store of light energy, the more energy is available for healing and the maintenance of optimal health. Light is our umbilical link to the universe." End quote. We also have other insights about the light within raw fruits and vegetables. Some people can see light radiating from raw fruit and vegetables with their own eyes. Other people rely on methods such as Kirlian photography, which shows radiant raw fruits and vegetables emanating light. This comes back to Dr. Cousens' comment that light is our umbilical link to the universe. As mentioned, the doctrine of signatures applies to food such as fruits, vegetables, plants, herbs, and trees. But nowadays, people also consider meat to be food. So let's take a moment now to look at meat and animal products through this lens of keen observation to decipher how it may affect us if we eat it. If we look at the standard agricultural system of today, many young animals are conceived and born under unnatural circumstances, in unnatural environments, and often separated from their mother at a very tender age. Take bobby calves, for example. They are separated from their mother hours after birth, sent to slaughter at 5 days old, or slaughtered for veal at 3 months old. This is a time of incredible emotional turmoil for the mother and her baby. Mums cry out for their babies and try to physically prevent them from being taken away. Bobby calves are largely confined to small pens where they receive no physical contact with the other calves. They are often kept malnourished so that their flesh will stay a light pink colour due to anemia. In large operations, the pen comprises of a tiny fenced area and tiny shelter, with the calves still exposed to the elements. Calves stand in the mud and their own excrement all day. They shiver in the cold. Some do not survive in the rainy, cold weather and can get stuck in the mud. They don't have the warm body of other calves or their mum to keep warm. At a young age, they are sent to slaughter where they witness other calves killed in front of them before they themselves are killed. The question becomes, what energetic signatures are we taking in if we eat veal? If we consider the doctrine of signatures perspective of regarding veal as food, all of this information must be considered. It gives us insights into the energetic signature that we would take into our body if we consume veal. An interesting consideration when we think about food in this way is the topic of eggs. Vegans avoid eggs for many reasons that directly relate to the poor treatment of the hens and chicks. These birds are often considered to be the most mistreated of any animal on our planet, due to the extensive suffering that they endure and the overwhelming number of chickens involved. For hundreds of years, vegetarians around the world have avoided eggs due to the teachings of the Ascended Masters. Supreme Master Ching Hai has given an insight into why past and present spiritual masters have advised people to avoid eggs. She has stated, quote, "Eggs contain half of the life, and then they unite together and become a chicken. This is the first reason why we should not eat eggs. Now some eggs are unfertilized, but still they contain half of the life in them. The second reason is that chickens, they eat all kinds of worms with bacteria and disease. So when we eat them, the eggs are not that pure, not good for our delicate system. The more we practice, the more we become very sensitive. It's dirty." The third reason is that all the black magicians, witches, they use eggs to attract so-called dead souls, controlled souls. If we eat them, we also attract these souls to ourselves. So we add more negative nature to our own beings. It's not very helpful for spiritual progress, so we don't eat eggs." End quote. From Practicing Makes the World More Civilized. News 55. Media reports spoken by Supreme Master Ching Hai, vegan, at Columbia University, USA, 1989. I was curious about this, so I did some deeper research. Part of this involved me reaching out to a hen for her perspective. This particular hen lived on a sanctuary. On the topic of humans eating eggs, she said, quote, "It's unnatural. It's out of the natural order. It isn't following the evolvement plan that is laid out for humans. There are other ways to nourish the body. The way we nourish the body needs to be in sync with nature and the world. We have to nourish our mind. We need to learn. We need to have wisdom. We need to nourish the heart. If these aren't nourished, we won't be able to get the nourishment from the food." End quote. People who like to consume eggs, but wish to cease doing so, may benefit from having their vitamin D level checked and obtaining vitamin D from a more compassionate source, such as algae-derived vegan supplements or from the sun. Once we study the pitiful lives of factory-farmed animals and intensively farmed land and ocean animals, we realize that the energy that we take in if we eat their flesh and byproducts is the opposite of nourishing us. This is for many reasons, including the torment and suffering that animals experience when they are raised for consumption. Listening with an open heart. People who listen to nature with an open heart may receive profound insights. For example, Julia Graves, author of The Language of Plants, A Guide to the Doctrine of Signatures, states, quote, "As a child, I just knew which plant to pick up and hold to my head for a headache to go away. Once I heard about the concept of a doctrine of signatures, I would just stand silently, in awe of nature talking to me, talking and talking in her silent, direct speech. The book of nature seemed so obviously spelled out, and in oddest contrast to what I learned in medical school. My professors seemed never to have heard of nature being vibrant and alive, and brimming with patterns of energy that are right there for us to understand." End quote. This sounds very similar to the process of animal communication, and if we listen with an open heart to the messages that all animals convey, we inevitably receive messages from animals that express displeasure with being regarded as food, as well as messages of how animals would like to be treated. The hen mentioned above also expressed the following, quote, "We all have different personalities. We have needs just like humans. People need to know how deeply we feel and how aware we are. Here I felt the extended consciousness of this beautiful chicken. We need to live our lives naturally. We need to create bonds, and we need to be able to spread our love into the world. Anyone listening, look at us hens like any other animal. Look at us with kind eyes and a kind heart. See the human in us. See those aspects of you in us, and then you will see. Then you will treat us kindly. Kindness isn't a philosophy. You do kindness with your actions. Every action can be fueled by kindness and love. We just need to tap into that and then radiate it outwards. And we need to reflect, because if we don't look within, we will be blind." End quote. She also said, "We are dignified. We carry ourselves with dignity, and when we can't do that, we just wither." The animals say that they want to be treated with love and respect. The animals say that they have feelings, they don't want to suffer. Yet this is exactly what happens when they are regarded as food. To borrow the words of Julia Graves, animals are also, quote, "vibrant and alive and brimming with patterns of energy that are right there for us to understand." End quote. This is important to acknowledge. As human beings and animal communicators, if the information that an animal shares is too overwhelming for us, even at a subconscious level, that is, a level that we aren't even aware of, we can block it out. We might also do this by not being able to peek behind the curtain to learn about what animals endure before ending up on the dinner plate. Hence, we will miss messages around a certain topic when the animals wish to communicate about it. In some circumstances, it can also be like having a conversation with a friend who doesn't want to discuss a particular topic. We can sense from others when they don't want to speak about a certain topic by their body language, their tone of voice, their lack of interest in the topic, their lack of focus, and perhaps even their avoidance. And when we sense this, we will often not raise that topic in conversation, but stick to other subjects that are more mutually acceptable. It's the same with animals. The animals that we converse with know us very quickly and very deeply. Many of us have received personal messages from animals when we connect with them for the first time, even when they have never previously met us. And so the animals can sense whether we are open to receiving such information or not. If not, the animals can also avoid raising the subject of meat eating with us if we are sending these avoidance signals. This partly explains why some animal communicators might not have received such information pertaining to the animal's suffering when reared for food. Animals also speak amongst themselves, and animal communicators describe how animals have discussed many concerning facets of being intended for food. This includes their fear of being slaughtered and their worry for their loved ones who are being raised for meat consumption or for their byproducts. You may wonder what happens physically when animals are feeling emotions, such as sadness, fear, worry, and helplessness. Did you know that in addition to experiencing these overwhelming emotions, the cells of the body also record them? Body cells record emotional information. Cells have receptors that can grant access to allow substances to enter the cell, or they can deny access to substances and prevent them from entering the cell. The receptors are like gatekeepers. People have also described cell receptors as being similar to a lock and a key. The cell receptor is the lock, and specific substances with the right key can gain entry into the cell. A substance can then bind with cells and cause changes in the cell's activities. Hormones are an example of a substance that enters into the cells and causes changes in their activity. The late Dr. Candace Pert, a neuroscientist, discovered the brain's opiate receptors and did a lot of research into understanding the role of cell receptors. She wrote the book Molecules of Emotion, which gave fascinating insights into cells and the ways that they function. In her book, Molecules of Emotion, Dr. Pert wrote, quote, "A feeling sparked in our mind or body will translate as a peptide being released somewhere. Organs, tissues, skin, muscle, and endocrine glands. They all have peptide receptors on them and can access and store emotional information. This means the emotional memory is stored in many places in the body, not just or even primarily in the brain. You can access emotional memory anywhere in the peptide receptor network in any number of ways." End quote. Ultimately, Dr. Pert concluded that the body and mind are not separate. If we pause to think about it, I'm sure that we'll realize how much sense this makes. Many of us know this through working with people and animals, and even through our personal experiences. Body workers, such as massage therapists, are taught that when massaging someone, there may be a release of emotions. This occurs when an area storing emotional trauma is massaged, as the emotions may be released. Yoga instructors are also aware of this and acknowledge that during yoga poses, people can also experience a release of emotions. We store trauma in our bodies, and those who work with animals and do body work and animal communication know that they also store trauma and suffering in their bodies, and these energetic imbalances can cause ill health. When we understand this, we then understand that when people say they don't want to eat animals because they don't want the animals suffering in their body, they are correct. Perhaps you understood how this occurred from an energetic perspective, but through Dr. Pert's work, we have been given an understanding of how this occurs physically through emotional information stored at the cellular level. Through ingesting meat, which is comprised of cells, we take the cellular memories of the animal being into our own body. We also have the centuries-old traditional Chinese medicine, stating that intense emotions cause blockages within the body's energy systems. We know that this is the same for animals. Animal communicators will often relay this understanding. Animals in particular often respond extremely well to acupuncture, acupressure, and herbal treatment. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is said that we have meridians that run through our bodies. Quote, "According to Chinese medical theory, energy flows through our body through a network of roads that are almost like a highway system. Stress, anger, or any intense emotion acts like a traffic jam, blocking the free flow of energy in the body." End quote. Again, this is stored or trapped emotion. In the case of animals, the emotion has been experienced due to suffering and trauma, and this has effects on a physical and energetic level, just like us. So, what about people who say that specific organs of an animal's body are good for us to eat? If we look at traditional Chinese medicine, there has always been an understanding that particular emotions are associated with and affect particular organs. Broadly speaking, these emotions are regarded to be either positive or negative. For example, in broad terms, excessive anger and irritability are thought to affect the liver and are associated with many various types of disease. A liver imbalance can also lead to grumpy moods. The unconstructive or negative emotion related to imbalance of the kidneys and bladder is fear. For the liver and gallbladder, the emotions are anger and resentment. The unconstructive or negative emotions related to an imbalance in the heart and small intestine are hatred and injustice. And for the stomach and pancreas, the emotion is anxiety. This information is important to consider because there are people who promote eating animal organs for health reasons. But if we are consuming animal organs, what emotional and vibrational residues are we putting into our body and mind? And how does this affect us? How does it affect our mood? How does it affect our spirituality? And how does it affect our capacity for compassion and kindness? Ultimately, for most animals who become food, their lives are full of unnecessary suffering. Apart from the fact that many animals are in poor physical health when slaughtered for food, they also experience grief, despair, worry, fear, anxiety, despondence, and anger. This is stored in their bodies energetically and on a cellular level. If we ingest this, we are affected in various ways. An amazing organ, the heart. When we consider the heart more deeply, we discover an amazing reservoir of stored information. Scientists have discovered that we actually have neurons within our hearts that are similar to those in our brains. Neurons are special cells that help to send signals in the brain. They can pass on chemical and electrical signals. It is thought that neurons have several functions. For example, some store memories. So, imagine the surprise when scientists found that the heart contains neurons. Neurons are said to fire when they transmit their signals, and it is now believed that the heart neurons fire in synchronicity with the brain. So, the heart and brain are connected in a very special way. Studies have shown that the heart reacts to intense emotions, particularly anger and grief. The heart also responds to positive emotions, such as joy. David Malone, a researcher who created the film of Hearts and Minds, has said, quote, "It is our heart working in tandem with our brain that allows us to feel for others. It is ultimately what makes us human. Compassion is the heart's gift to the rational mind." End quote. It's not too surprising then to learn of stories from heart transplant recipients who describe dramatic changes following heart transplants. The stories they share describe personality changes after receiving a heart transplant, changes that mirror their donor. Researchers state that these changes, quote, included changes in food, music, art, sexual, recreational, and career preferences, as well as specific instances of perceptions of names and sensory experiences related to the donors. End quote. As I read about this topic over the years, I came across some fascinating stories that heart recipients shared. One man received the heart of a young man who had loved playing the violin. After the heart transplant, he would sit for hours listening to classical music. Another story involved a little boy who received the heart of another little boy who had passed away. The families of the recipient and the donor arranged to meet. What happened when they met was amazing. The little boy ran straight to the donor's mother to hug her. He had never met her before, but he said that it was the donor, the deceased little boy whose heart was now beating in this little boy's chest, that made him run to her. Another story conveyed that a heart donor had been a committed and passionate vegan. She would not allow people to bring meat into her house. The recipient of her heart also became vegan. On the flip side, another story involves a woman who received a heart transplant and then began to have strange new cravings for beer and Kentucky Fried Chicken. She made some inquiries and learned that her donor had been an 18-year-old male who loved eating these foods. These transplant stories are examples of how taking a different heart into one's body presents new information that is received and integrated by the body, which can influence the personality of the recipient. These are in people who receive live organs, which are connected to their body, so the effect is much more obvious. Yet people may be eating heart tissue and brain tissue from animals when they eat sausages or pies, for example. When eating meat and animal-derived ingredients, we experience these energetic burdens that can affect us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, without many of us being aware of what is happening. What about the energy that we radiate? Human and animal beings are always broadcasting energetic information out into the world. Joan Ranquet, animal communicator and founder of Communication with All Life University, has shared some information about the energy that we broadcast. She explains, quote, "We are always broadcasting, which means we are always sending and receiving at the same time. It's not something that we're doing. It's not an action verb. It's actually what we're being." End quote. So, how does eating animal products affect the type of energy that we radiate? Or how does it affect the vibrational broadcasts that we are emitting out into the world? Supreme Master Ching Hai has explained, quote, "You see, eating animal flesh, meaning we are decreasing our love in our being, from our structure, holy structure. We are born from God. We were holy. We were children of God. But if we eat the animals, then the mixing of blood type and genetic code between human and animals makes us lose our status as the crown of creation. As pure humans, the children of God, we are under direct connection with the light, with the mighty master power of the commanding center of the universe." End quote. She goes on to say, quote, "But as we keep putting different elements into our beings, even physically, it will affect our spiritual structure as well, because we became mixing structure, not pure. This mixling creature sends very confusing energy, confusing message into the center of the universe. It's not recognized as pure human." End quote. Stated at the world premiere of The Real Love, the musical, in Pasadena, USA in 2011. These are extremely powerful words. I've heard at least one animal communicator state that they can tell who is vegetarian or not when they are out and about in public. Some animals also have this awareness. I've also experienced this knowing that someone is vegetarian without them telling me. Perhaps this is part of why we have had these experiences of knowing, due to the energy people are emitting and that we receive on some level. The good news is that more and more people are awakening to their brilliant spiritual nature and discovering how eating a plant-based diet aligns with this. Judy Carmen has written these beautiful words that remind us of this. Quote, "Spirituality is what we feel and deeply know in our hearts and spirits, that is, beyond the mind. The fact that you care about the suffering of animals, in spite of society's pressure on you to ignore it, means you are in touch with your true heart and your true spirit. Spirituality is the unseen but deeply felt love that dwells in your heart. In that sense, you have truly been called by love to do what you can to help liberate animals from human violence, and you have answered the call." End quote. As more people awaken their loving and compassionate nature, we can collectively transform our world into a world of kindness for all. Winter Worsthorne, an international animal communicator and founder of the Animal Talk Africa online academy, has shared a beautiful message received from nature that resonates here. Quote, "Everything can be transformed with injection of high vibrational energy, unconditional love and intention. All can be transcended into peace, love, and serenity." End quote. So many of us long for a serene world. Many of us are adopting a vegan diet and lifestyle in order to help create a world of peace and kindness. What a healing balm this is.